back to Market on Close. I'm Marley, Kayden here in Chicago alongside Sam Vadas at the New York Stock Exchange. We'll close out our week with some final thoughts on today's session. We saw quantum computing stocks finishing the week with impressive double-digit gains following a slew of positive headlines in the space. Rigetti Computing shared that it has purchase orders totaling $5.7 million for two of its quantum computing systems. Also, the owner of drug maker Novo Nordisk and the Danish government invested 300 million euros in a quantum venture fund. That sent shares of Rigetti Computing, D-Wave Quantum, and Quantum Computing up more than 20% on the week. Rigetti's stock has more than doubled since the start of the year. D-Wave Quantum's more than tripled. We also saw Arctic Quantum skyrocket about 36% so far this week. And I've continued talking about the Fed speakers for much of the week, and we heard from a couple more powerful voices today, with all of them mentioning inflation concerns. Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee echoed a similarly hawkish sentiment to what we heard from Lori Logan yesterday, saying, quote, "I'm a little wary about front-loading too many rate cuts and just counting on the inflation going away." He also described the Fed as being in a quote-unquote sticky spot. Fed Vice Chair Philip Jefferson said that his baseline outlook is highly uncertain as far as the size and number of cuts, mainly due to the changes in government policies and the challenges around assessing their net effects on employment and inflation. So some telling commentary there, Sam, interestingly enough, as we go into the Fed meeting later in October. But what caught your eye during today's trading session?
Well, Marley, we started off the week talking about this sort of oil tech spread unwind. It was interesting, actually. Tech ended lower, energy ended higher. But what we had seen is that sort of trend had continued as the days went on throughout the week. And that chip rally has really been a big market story this week. We've seen all-time highs, not just here, but across Asia, in South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. So this has really been felt globally and is starting to work its way through the food chain. Think your energy and data center cooling internationally as well. As I mentioned, we did still see tech coming off a bit today. We saw some of the chip names down. I addressed that earlier in the show, but still, technology had a pretty good run this week. And while the Nasdaq came off a bit, we still saw the S&P 500 on a winning streak. We're looking at the 31st record high for 2025 as far as that close is concerned. Oil, though, heading in the other direction. It was the worst week for June as prices dipped to $60 a barrel. And it comes, as we mentioned earlier, as OPEC Plus is expected to announce a hike to production at its meeting this weekend, really adding to some of those supply concerns as summer demand comes off. Traders have also noted that the U.S. government shutdown and perhaps some of these tariffs may add to those economic uncertainties as well. But heading into next week, what are you going to be looking out for, Marley?
I'm so Fed-centric this week, so it's the Fed minutes that we're getting on Wednesday afternoon. Even if we're still in a shutdown, we should still get them. The minutes will offer a more in-depth look than the initial FOMC statement did, so we'll get some greater detail on where each individual voter stands. And this could give us some further clues on where monetary policy is heading, which will certainly come into play at the end of the month when we have that FOMC meeting. But that meeting may have far less data than the members usually have to make those rate-cutting decisions, especially as we've seen some of the voters more recently take a hawkish stance in their recent speeches, obviously looking for any updates on the shutdown, as well as Constellation Brands earnings, because in the absence of this data, Sam, they have the potential, as KG said, to be a market mover in terms of the broader look at the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be key. I'm going to be watching OpenAI Developer Conference, or Dev Day as they call it, which is on Monday in San Francisco. And that could really be the sort of next big catalyst for this whole AI trade, Marley, given the global chip rally, as I just mentioned, that we saw this week. And that's really been partly put down to the headlines surrounding OpenAI. This has just become the biggest startup leapfrogging SpaceX with that valuation. And it's been very busy lately announcing partnerships with Samsung, SK Hynix, and Hitachi more recently. And obviously we just spoke to Chris Wang, who also mentioned that Sora had really gone to the top of the Apple App Store as well. So this event, no doubt, is going to be closely watched for any more deals or anything new, like on ChatGPT and pricing changes. And as I said, that could be another catalyst for this whole AI trade. And it's really interesting if I sort of marry what I'm going to be watching out for and what you're going to be watching out for, and particularly given what you talked about with Goolsby. I found it so interesting how he weighed in kind of on the stock market and this whole conversation about valuations, and that, maybe we should be aware of the potential for an overbuild in this space. So just keep an eye on that. I thought that was interesting.
Yes, well, that's going to do it for us on Market on Close.